All right, buckle up because today we're diving deep into Lattice Semiconductor.
LSCC.
Exactly, LSCC on the ticker. And wow, you guys sent in a ton of research reports, articles. Some of you even included your own personal notes on this one.
Yeah, you're serious about LSCC.
So instead of you having to sift through all of that, we're going to break down the need-to-know info on Lattice Semiconductor.
Your cheat sheet to understanding this company.
Yeah, think of it like that.
Cool.
This is a fascinating company.
They really are. And, you know, what I think is so interesting about them is they're not trying to be everything to everyone in this giant semiconductor space. They found their niche and they're running with it.
Okay, so let's start with the basics. What does Lattice do?
So they're what's called a fabless semiconductor company, meaning they design the chips, but they outsource the actual manufacturing.
Yep.
Which is a smart move because it lets them focus on what they do best.
Design.
And what they design are FPGAs.
FPGAs.
It stands for Field Programmable Gate Arrays.
All right, break that down for me. What is that?
Okay, so imagine this. If neural computer chips are like pre-written instruction manuals,
Okay.
FPGAs are like blank slates
Got it.
that can be programmed after they're made.
Interesting.
So that makes them super adaptable.
Okay.
Which is perfect for things that are always changing, like AI and edge computing, where you need flexibility.
So they're like the chameleons of the chip world.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what makes them so valuable, especially now.
Okay. So that's the what, but where does the money come from? How do they actually turn a profit from these FPGAs?
Good question. So their revenue streams are actually pretty diverse. A good chunk comes from communications and computing.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's industrial and automotive.
Okay.
And then consumer electronics brings in a decent amount too. But here's a big one. Over 60% of their revenue comes from Asia.
Whoa, that's huge. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, it's a little of both, honestly. I mean, on the one hand, it shows they're killing it in a market that's booming. But on the other hand, you know,
It's risky.
it's risky. Things like economic downturns or even political instability over there could really impact them. Investors have to factor that in.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's talk about the people running the show, the management team. What can you tell me about them?
Well, right now, the CEO is a guy named Ford Tamer.
Ford Tamer. Okay.
He's relatively new. He came over from Infi a few years ago.
One Fee, that's another big name in semiconductors, right?
Yeah, exactly. So he's got experience.
So he's a veteran of the industry.
Yeah.
How has that been received? Bringing somebody in from another big company.
You know what? Wall Street seems pretty happy about it. Actually, when they announced he was taking over, Stifel, they're a pretty big financial services firm,
Yeah.
they upgraded Lattice's stock rating. So there are some high hopes for this guy.
High hopes and high pressure, probably. Especially when you think back to 2017 when that Chinese firm tried to buy Lattice.
Oh, yeah.
The deal fell through in the end, but it really shows that their tech is kind of a big deal globally.
For sure. That whole situation shows just how valuable their tech and their patents are. It also shows you the crazy world these companies have to work in with all the politics and stuff.
Yeah, it's not just about making chips anymore. So it sounds like this new CEO, he's got a lot on his plate. But let's shift gears and talk numbers for a second. How's the company's financial health looking?
Overall, I'd say they've been doing okay. Revenue growth has been decent over the past few years, but, you know, the semiconductor industry's been kind of a roller coaster lately.
Yeah, I mean, that chip shortage really hit everyone hard, right?
Totally. Those supply chain issues mess things up for everybody. But the good news is, despite all that, Lattice is still making money.
That is good news.
They're profitable, generating positive free cash flow, which means they've got some flexibility, and their balance sheet's pretty solid.
Okay, so they're weathering the storm. But didn't they have to make some tough choices to stay afloat? Something about layoffs?
Yeah. Earlier this year, they announced they were cutting 14% of their workforce.
Oh, wow.
Definitely not an easy decision, but it shows they're serious about streamlining and staying profitable. It's a tough environment out there.
All right, so we've covered their business model, their place in the market, those leadership changes, and how they're handling the ups and downs, the financials. What are you thinking so far?
Well, it's clear they've carved out a unique spot for themselves, and they're making some smart moves. But there's still a lot more to unpack here. We need to dig into market sentiment, see who owns the company, and do a full risk assessment.
Sounds like a good plan.
All right, so let's keep digging into Lattice. We need to see what the market thinks about them. What's Wall Street saying about LSCC?
Well, it's a bit of a mixed bag. Some analysts are really excited about them. They think Lattice is in a prime spot to take advantage of all the growth in AI and edge computing.
Right, right. But there are definitely some more cautious voices out there, too. They're worried about how much Lattice relies on Asia for revenue. And, the semiconductor industry as a whole has been pretty unpredictable lately.
Yeah, for sure. It's been up and down. But I did find something pretty interesting.
What's that?
So, Daniel Pfaffen. It's
Yeah.
that AI stock analysis platform.
Yeah.
They gave Lattice a 9 out of 10 buy rating.
That's pretty high. I mean, it's definitely something to think about. AI and those algorithms are becoming a bigger part of finance these days. But at the end of the day, you still have to use your own judgment.
For sure, you can't just blindly follow what the robots say.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's move on to ownership. Who are the big players holding Lattice stock?
Well, most of it is owned by institutions, the usual suspects, mutual funds, hedge funds.
Okay, the big money.
Yeah, those guys. And they usually do their homework before investing, so that says something.
Yeah, they've got whole teams of analysts, right? But are there any specific names we should know about?
One that stands out is FMR Corp. They've got a pretty sizable chunk of Lattice. It's worth keeping an eye on what they do. If they buy more, sell, or just sit tight, it might tell us something about how they view the company.
Interesting. All right, time to get into the risks. What are some of the big things investors should be thinking about with Lattice?
Well, let's do a classic SWOT analysis. Strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. It's a good way to get a complete picture.
Yeah, good idea. Let's break it down. What are Lattice's biggest strengths?
I think their focus on low-power FPGAs is a huge one.
Right.
They're kind of the experts in that area, which is becoming more and more important as devices need to be more energy efficient. And they're also really going after those hot markets. AI and edge computing shows they're thinking ahead.
Yeah, they're not just stuck in the past. But what about weaknesses?
Well, the elephant in the room is that they're pretty small compared to the big guys like Intel or Xilinx. That means they might not have the same resources or pricing power. And they could be more vulnerable if the industry takes a hit. Plus, that concentration of revenue in Asia, we talked about that. It's a risk.
So nimble, but maybe not as strong if things get rough. What about opportunities? Where's the potential for Lattice to really shine?
Oh, edge computing's a big one. As more and more data processing moves away from the cloud and onto devices themselves, the demand for FPGAs, especially low-power ones like Lattice makes, is going to skyrocket.
Right, it's like the perfect storm for them.
Exactly, and they're already there, ahead of the game.
Plus, don't forget AI. Everybody's talking about AI these days. More AI means more demand for specialized chips, which is exactly what Lattice does.
Absolutely, they're in a sweet spot there, too.
Okay, so strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, checked. What about threats? What could really hurt them?
Well, let's be honest. Competition in semiconductors is brutal.
Yeah.
Those big companies we talked about, they're not going to just let Lattice steal their lunch. They're constantly innovating, fighting for market share. Lattice has got to stay sharp to keep up.
It's a tough game.
For sure. And then there's always the risk of, new tech coming along and changing everything. Disruption. What's cutting edge today could be obsolete tomorrow. They can't afford to fall behind.
So they've got some good things going for them, but they're in a tough spot. It's risky.
It is. It's a classic high-risk, high-reward situation.
Totally. But we haven't talked about one thing yet, and it's kind of unexpected.
Oh, what's that?
Sustainability. They're actually doing a lot to be environmentally responsible.
Oh, yeah, they are.
Their Lattice Nexus 2 platform just won a SEAL Sustainable Product Award.
Wow, that's a pretty big deal. It shows they're serious about making tech that's not just powerful and efficient, but good for the planet, too.
Yeah, it's impressive. They're proving you can be profitable and green at the same time. Okay, so we've covered so much: business model, management, financials, market opinions, risks, even sustainability.
Well, it looks like the stock is trading at a bit of a premium right now. It's not exactly a steal,
Okay.
but that premium might be justified if the company can keep growing like people expect. Investors are usually willing to pay a little extra for companies that look like they have a bright future.
So it's a bet on their potential, not just on how they're doing right now. But what if they don't grow as fast as everyone thinks? What if those markets they're targeting, like AI and edge computing, slow down or get even more competitive?
Yeah, that's always a risk. And that premium could disappear pretty quickly. Especially in an industry like semiconductors, things change so fast.
Yeah, it's a wild ride.
Mm.
But remember we talked about the possibility of Lattice being acquired.
Oh, yeah, by another company.
Right. Do you think that could really happen?
It's possible. Remember that Chinese company that tried to buy them a few years back?
Mm-hmm.
It shows that some people see Lattice as a valuable asset. They've got great technology, they're in these growing markets. It wouldn't be surprising if a bigger company came knocking, wanting to add them to their portfolio.
So it's like a bonus for investors, right?
Yeah.
If you buy the stock now and Lattice gets acquired later, you can make a nice profit. Obviously, there are no guarantees, but it's an interesting thing to keep in mind.
Exactly. It's another piece of the puzzle, and that's the main point here. There's no crystal ball, no easy answer. Investing is all about weighing the risks and rewards, and then making the best decision you can with the information you have.
And that's why doing your own research is so important. Don't just blindly follow what other people say, or just look at the headlines. Dig deeper. Look at their financials, read their reports, even listen to their earnings calls.
Yeah, get a feel for the management team. What's their vision? What's their track record?
And what about the competition?
Right, look at the other companies in the industry. What are they doing? What are their strengths and weaknesses? It's all about context.
Okay, so bottom line, is Lattice Semiconductor a buy? Thumbs up, thumbs down, or somewhere in between?
Well, we're not giving investment advice here, but we can say this. Lattice has a lot of potential. They're in some exciting markets. They've got a good leadership team, and they care about sustainability. But they're also facing tough competition, and things can change quickly in this industry. It's a balancing act.
Risk and reward. So ultimately, the decision of whether to invest in Lattice is up to you. You've got to weigh all the factors and make the call.
Exactly. And hopefully this deep dive has given you the information you need to make a smart decision.
If you want to learn more about Lattice or other companies like them, make sure to subscribe to Stock Analytics AI on YouTube.
We'll be doing more deep dives, analyzing companies, and talking about everything investors need to know.
And don't forget, all the sources we used for this deep dive are listed in the description below.
If you're looking for stock tips, head over to the comments. Just kidding. Always do your own research, talk to a financial advisor, and invest responsibly. This is all just for educational purposes.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Lattice Semiconductor. We'll see you next time.